But what was really I didn't expect was the Army's response. I'm thinking, I'm a young Army Ranger. I'm doing the right thing. I'm defending my home. I'm defending my neighbors. I'm doing what I was trained to do. I took an oath for years of my life, an oath to support and defend the Constitution. And but big Army, man, even the Ranger community was like this is fucked up. We can't have this Ranger doing this. And but they never bothered to ask why. Nobody ever asked like, how did it get to this? How does that start? This wasn't just some like random, like, hey, we're going to get into a shootout tonight. I mean, there was a lot of things that led up to this. They never bothered to ask the fucking questions. And so a couple of things happened that I thought were pretty fucked up and discouraging. This guy named General Waller had assumed command of I Corps. And this is like a couple of days after, the shootout. So I get word, it's like, hey, you need to go report to the CG. I'm like, what the fuck's this guy want to see me for? He's a fucking 3-star general. I'm a staff sergeant. So anyway, I get the word, I got a report. So in my first stop, I got to go to the public affairs office. And so I walk in the lobby and there's like nobody there. I'm like, what the fuck is everybody? But they got the TV on in the lobby. And at the moment, it was kind of funny. The General Waller was being interviewed by someone on the TV and they're showing the interview. So I'm looking at the TV and just for whatever reason, I look at the TV and I said out loud, oh, so that's what he looks like. And then all of a sudden there was a voice behind me that said, yeah, he said the same thing about you. And I was like, oh, so I'm not alone. And turned out, I think this guy's name was Rosenblatt. He was a super awesome guy. He was a Vietnam vet and he was in the guard, like working on like in the aviation unit. But he worked there at the public affairs office, as his DOD job. And the only guy on base that had my back. He was the only guy that would call me up and warn me when heat rounds were coming or when they were trying to ambush me or some other kind of shit. So I'm very, very thankful to that guy. But anyway, I got to go report to the CG. And walking in, it's exactly what I would expect. Some mahogany row and you got this great big conference room and this huge table. And the general is sitting at one end of the table and there's an empty seat at the other end. Now, one side of the table is the whole I Corps staff. There'd be like 8 people sitting on one side. On the other side of the table was the whole command staff from the Ranger Battalion. Battalion commander, the XO, the sergeant major, my company commander, the first sergeant, all sitting on the other side. And I walk in, I report, and they're like, sit down. And so I sit, and I'm thinking that we're going to talk. They're going to ask me questions. And then all that starts happening is there's a conversation between the general and the 2 staffs. Like, how can we fuck this guy? What can we do to him? How can we get him out of the Army? How can we get him out? And fortunately, the JAG is sitting in there. And every time they came up with some fucked up scheme, the JAG's like, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't. And they're like, the JAG is like, there's nothing you can do. And which really pissed them off. And so finally, the general says, all right, and then I think with the advice of the JAG, they're like, well, just leave it a civilian matter. It happened, it was a civilian matter. It happened off base. It was off duty. Leave it as a civilian matter. Don't get the Army involved. And so the general like, all right, Sergeant Foulk, that's what we're going to do. We're going to leave it as a civilian matter. Do keep the Army out of this. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I never intended to bring the Army into it, And so I get dismissed and I leave. And I'm starting to walk down the hallway. And then like just within a couple of seconds, all of a sudden, there's this voice behind me, Sergeant Foulk. And I stop and I turn around like, it's a colonel. And it turned out he was chief of staff. And I'm like, yes, sir. And he's pissed off. And I could tell by his uniform, he was a Vietnam vet. And he's pissed off. And he looks at me and he says, Sergeant Foulk, he said, I just want you to know you can forget about ever getting promoted. And I'm like, why is that, sir? And he said, because you become too well known for the wrong reasons. And I look at him and I said, sir, if these are the wrong reasons, I'm in the wrong job. And I turned around and walked away. And I thought, how fucked up? What a fucked up thing to say.